Ty, to dobre. Każdy argument dla złej gry kosztującej $70.
Before we begin, I'm not very comfortable in the debate genre, so please don't expect too many videos like this
To
from
może
me.
być dobre. Dzięki,
Also, don't
cykary.
expect too many videos
Dzięki,
from me at all,
Antale.
because making videos is really hard. Sony, Activision, and Take-Two have all decided to use the transition into a new console generation as a smokescreen
Materia
to bump the
sprzed 3
price
lat,
of their
tak w ogóle.
full-price AAA titles
To
from
też może być
$60
ciekawe, jak
to
się
$70.
zestarzał.
Well, inflation and budgets and, you know, markets and stuff, and sure, it makes sense. Yep, I guess they just have to. Oh well. This has had a pretty universally negative reception, but
A to jest, kurde, to jest giga ciekawe. Wiadomo, koleś tutaj tak podaje dla beki, ale tak, budżety gier faktycznie w dzisiejszych czasach są wyższe niż budżety gier kiedyś, prawda? Przy grach pracuje więcej osób, przez co te gry są droższe do tworzenia. Ale zapomina się o jednej bardzo istotnej rzeczy. Więcej osób gra w te gry, przez co mają o wiele wyższy sufit i w ogóle więcej osób kupuje te gry, nie piracąc ich, przez co te gry mają o wiele wyższy sufit swojego zarobku. Finalnie ta cena nie musiała być podniesiona przez inflację, nie, finalnie ta cena została podniesiona, żeby więcej na tym zarobić, no kurwa, nic więcej.
also just a bit too much of an attitude that this was inevitable and even necessary and even good. There are countless articles on how more expensive full-price games are good actually. I have gone through what I feel is a pretty representative slice of these articles, and I've heard their arguments, and I've grouped the arguments into several categories. I'm not going to straw man here. These are all specific arguments from real articles. One last thing, disclaimer, this only applies to USD.
Whoa, this is worthless.
Like most Americans, I think my country is the only one, and my bubble of experience is very narrow. Hope that's okay. We are going to start with by far the most common argument in all of these articles.
Muszą zarobić.
Hide your Azumanga Daioh characters because we're about to talk about inflation.
Aha, inflacja. Kurde, czy u nas się podaje często w Europie argument tego, że gry muszą być droższe, że to jest inflacja? Chyba już nie.
Boy, this is a big one. The gist of this argument is, look at the price of movie tickets and gallons of milk. They've gone up since 2005 too, so why shouldn't video games? The price of gallons of milk is generally used as a basic, relatable...
Ej, ale ja nie rozumiem, dlaczego ktoś z pozycji odbiorcy tłumaczy ogromny podmiot, że podniósł cenę. To jest dosłownie tak, jakbyś wziął sobie swojego fiuta i go sobie w swoją dupę wsadził, no.
baseline example of inflation.
What could it cost? $10?
So that's why the comparison gets drawn, but I have more of a problem with the other comparison. 2005 is the year $60 games became standard everywhere when Call of Duty set the new standard, according to pretty much all of these articles, so we'll use that year. In 2005, the average price of a movie ticket in the US was $6.41. Inflation to 2019 would equal about $8.39, but the average price of a ticket in 2019 was $9.16. So fairly above the inflation rate, but in the ballpark. This is all surprising to me because where I live, movie tickets are like between 10 and 14 bucks, sometimes even more. They fluctuate wildly per region, per theater chain, per movie, per day, per time. How old the person is, whether the person is in the military, whether or not the customer has a rewards card, a person's race. Okay, maybe not that one anymore. The price of full-price AAA games in the US since 2005 has been $60 universally for everyone. So because one is standardized and one is not, I think they're not fairly comparable. But I also think they're not comparable because they're nothing alike. Seeing a movie in a big theater with an audience is not buying a product. It's an experience. It's a date night. It's an event. It's a memory of the before times. Video games are a product that you purchase to own. And I know video game ownership is getting less and less concrete, but that's beside the point. They're home media. If we're comparing the price of games to the price of movies, we should use home media. So, what was the price of a new, full-price DVD in 2005? Let's see. For the record, the hypothesis is as follows.
Ty, to jest bardzo dobre bez kitu, no. Faktycznie. Wyjście na film do kina jest czymś bardziej w rodzaju wyjścia do restauracji, jest zupełnie innym typem rozrywki. A gra jest czymś, co kupujesz na stałe i masz w swojej bibliotece i tym jest o wiele bliżej do kupna filmu na DVD. To są, bardzo celne,
Is about 15% more than $60. So if we're comparing them, prices of home video should be higher today than they were in 2005 by about 15%. This is
O kurwa, i on podejdzie z tym teraz do Netflixa. Tak? Użyje argumentu Netflixa odnośnie tego, jak w tym momencie video on demand i ogólne uproszczenie dystrybucji danego typu rozrywki uprościło i w ogóle zmniejszyło koszt, nie?
about
No bo to jest pierwsza rzecz, która mi przychodzi do głowy. Czyli tak, kiedyś musiałeś coś na DVD kupić, teraz jedynie co i w ogóle musisz mieć sprzęt podłączony do telewizora, musisz mieć czytnik DVD. W tym momencie wystarczy, że masz telewizor, kupujesz sobie abonament na Netflixie i w cenie tam, nie wiem, $10 masz kurwa tysiące filmów i jest to spowodowane tylko i wyłącznie tym, że dystrybucja tego jest o wiele łatwiejsza, bo sprzedajesz komuś abonament i masz jedną bazę i tyle i ktoś się musi podpiąć. I tak jak dystrybucja gier kiedyś też była fizyczna, tak teraz się odbywa w pełni cyfrowo.
half of what is expected of inflation, which is close to 30%. Let's use the cheapest store, Walmart, and let's look at two Wayback Machine dates. So what are we watching, boys?
I better
Myślisz, że period, kurwa?
the past. This is DVD.
He's got a big trunk.
Into my undercarriage. Still
Pomiędzy
alive, baby?
$15 a $20. No.
Let's.
So we average together all 13 of these DVDs and we come up with an average of $18.11. Run this through the old Dobson machine and we get $24.14. But we're not using the inflation rate of 33%, we're only going to use 15%. And that gives us about $20.83. Alright, so let's look at 13 Blu-rays from 2020 and see how they compare. They should be $20.83 or more. We're going to use the same website, walmart.com. We're only going to use sold and shipped by walmart.com. And we're only going to use movies that came out in 2020, if there are 13 movies that came out in 2020. There might not be. Alright, let's see.
Come on, man.
Adrian is dead.
All right. Jumanji. What?
Kurwa.
Yep, I could only think of 9. Alright, let's use some 2019 movies too, sorry.
That's because I'm rich.
They fly now.
I feel like this is a fair group of movies to choose. The average price is $17.45.
Czyli są tańsze.
That's less than the 2005 lot.
O
Isn't
kurwa.
data journalism fun? No, this was a miserable thing to try to research. But I personally think that this was a pretty fair comparison. I'm going to draw the conclusion that the price of home video has
Filmy
not gone
staniały.
up
Ale patrzcie, tutaj też mówimy o faktycznie fizycznych wydaniach, nie?
since
Cały
2005.
czas.
Even though on paper, better tech, higher film budgets, and inflation dictate that they should have gone up. I know this data is not perfect, and I know it's still kinda not super comparable, but I think it's better than just looking at movie tickets and saying, well, they're doing it. I don't know, that's my take anyway. But you know what I find interesting? Everyone talks about the price of movies, but no one talks about the price of music going up. Do you know why? Because everyone knows the price of music hasn't gone up because the music industry collapsed. We are only
Ile widzowie kosztuje teraz muzyka w dzisiejszych czasach? Jakiś zespół wypuszcza jakąś płytę. Ile ona teraz kosztuje? Ona jest za darmo. To jest nic. Jedynie co, to możesz zapłacić swoim czasem, jak obejrzysz reklamę, ale kto kurwa w dzisiejszych czasach nie ma, nie wiem, YouTube Premium albo Spotify'a, prawda? Jedynie co kosztuje to faktycznie to, co jest kolekcjonerskie, czyli jakieś winyla albo fizyczne wydania, no ale to już raczej się traktuje kolekcjonersko. Albo 60 zł, jak chcesz wspomóc zespół, ale to kupujesz ich koszulkę, no. Kto kupuje fizyczne wydania? No raczej ludzie, którzy je kolekcjonują.
just beginning to truly understand the apocalyptic scale of the music industry crash starting in the early 2000s. Even with streaming revenue, it's not even remotely close to what it was. And it happened because people stopped paying for music. But no one argues about
Ty,
was.
poczekaj, fajny wykres. Patrz na to. Sprzedaż muzyki, czyli pikowała w latach 90. Czyli teraz tak. Lata 90. całe częściowo były jeszcze oparte na kasetach z lat 80., ale to już królowały płyty. A to jest ciekawe, nie? Bo patrzcie, ja się urodziłem w latach 90. na początku, a ja bardziej kojarzę słuchanie na kasetach, może dlatego, że byłem kurwa biednym polskim dzieckiem, a dopiero potem przejście już na typową cyfrową muzykę MP3, no nie? I USB. i nie wiem, pierwszą MP3 stary, 256 megabajtów. To ja coś takiego bardziej kojarzę. Discmany, pamiętam, a może po prostu mi tak to mignęło? Nie no, ja miałem Discmana, miałem płytę, ale więcej raczej kaset mieliśmy, nie?
And it happened because people stopped paying for music. But no one argues about home video or music, they mention movie tickets, and yes, I concede. The price of movie tickets did indeed go up from 2005 to 2019. If you really want to compare them, let's just compare them. $6.50 is not a lot to pay for something. Neither is $9. The average price of movie tickets has risen by less than $3 in 15 years.
Dobra, poczekajcie,
$6.50
cofnijmy.
If you really want to compare them, let's just compare them. $6.50 is not a lot to pay for something, and neither is $9. The average price of movie tickets has risen by less than $3 in 15 years. Movie tickets are usually pretty affordable. That's why theaters make all their money in
O
snacks.
ty, to jest generalnie drugi jeszcze argument podany, że to się zwiększa, patrzymy na zwiększenie tego procentowo, ale to czy coś kosztuje 5 zł czy 6 zł, to nie ma takiego dużego znaczenia na przestrzeni 20 lat, no nie?
Even if it's the game of the year, $60 is always a lot to pay for a video game. Gradually creeping the price of movie tickets up by $2.75 over 1.5 decades is a far cry from taking a $60 purchase and raising it by $10 overnight. That
No, w tym momencie już jest
really
80, nie?
stings. Anyway, my closing arguments for this segment are comparing the standardized price of the purchase of a video game to own to the rise in the extremely variable price of a one-night admission to a limited, raising it by $10 overnight. That really stings. Anyway, my closing arguments for this segment are comparing the standardized price of the purchase of a video game to own to the rise in the extremely variable price of a one-night admission to a limited time entertainment event is dumb, and there's no real reason to compare them. And when comparing video games to the still non-standardized but more similar home video market, there is no rise in price. Not that I could find. So
Kurwa, ale jaki jest argument, o którym najczęściej zapominamy w przypadku zwiększenia cen gier komputerowych? Gry zwiększyły swoją cenę, ale zmniejszyły koszt swojej dystrybucji, prawda? I to jest środkowy palec, który został do was wyciągnięty, bo kiedyś te gry trzeba było wziąć, wrzucić na nośniki, rozesłać, prawda? To były ogromne koszty, które były generowane. Teraz tych kosztów już nie ma. Po prostu tego kosztu już nie ma. A i tak są droższe.
Stop talking to me about movie tickets. Moving on.
This is all necessary.
Well, what's all this useless junk?
That's the useless junk for scene 28.
This argument is made by basically every single article I could find on the subject. The budgets of games have risen, and prices will have to rise to accommodate this. Obviously. Of course.
Jezu, ej, ten argument jest idiotyczny. Patrzcie na to. To jest argument pokroju. Ja wam przedstawię ten argument na przykładzie. Chodzisz do swojego barbera, do swojego fryzjera, barber, no nie? I ten barber jest prowadzony przez jedną osobę, która ci strzyże włosy, nie? Tak? Nożyczkami. Albo maszynką. Ten barber zatrudnia dodatkową osobę. I jest ich 2 wtedy. Jego budżet działalności się właśnie zwiększył. Ty nadal kupujesz tą samą usługę strzyżenia włosów. Tak jakby skalowanie jego projektu cię nie interesuje, ponieważ ty nadal korzystasz z tego samego produktu. Ty kiedyś kupowałeś grę i teraz kupujesz grę. Ty kiedyś się strzygłeś i ty teraz się strzyżesz. To, jak studio skaluje swój produkt, cię w ogóle nie powinno interesować. Czy oni skalują swój budżet za pomocą zwiększenia marketingu i potencjalnego dotarcia do nowych osób. Idiotyczny jest ten argument. Czyli jeżeli firma jest większa i rośnie, to cena ich produktu ma iść w górę. No nie działa to tak. To jest idiotyczne.
Right? The third most expensive game of all time is probably a money laundering scam. Data on game budgets is woefully incomplete, so we just have to rely mostly on what we hear when these executives deign to provide us with this information. Unfortunately, that leaves us with a Wikipedia page full of holes that sources places like The Escapist. Also, these executives lie all the time about everything. I'm not doubting that the budgets of games are extravagant, but it's impossible to get good data on this when Bobby Kotick claims outlandish stuff like Destiny cost $500 million. It didn't. So we're mostly just gonna have to rely on rough estimates
Co to było
$1 million.
pokazane?
It did.
Okej, no ale... A patrzcie teraz na to, czy w ogóle podawanie kosztu marketingu i reklamy ma jakikolwiek sens w przypadku podawania tego, ile dana gra kosztowała. To może ja wezmę na sklepie moim, który prowadzę All That, wypierdolę miesięcznie chuj siana na reklamy i wam powiem, że te koszulki są absurdalnie drogie w produkcji i musicie je kupować, to są koszulki premium, że wyjebałem 100 000 w tym momencie na sklep w tym miesiącu, tylko po to, żeby mieć większą jakość. No nie, to nadal będzie ten sam materiał, ten sam dostawca, po prostu ja wjebałem więcej siana w reklamę. Tak, to jest brandzlowanie się do czegoś, czego nie ma, to jest idiotyczne.
Didn't. So we're mostly just gonna have to rely on rough estimates. Very rough. For example, my sister series, Extra Credits, comes up with this figure for your average AAA video game.
Somewhere between $75 and $100 million. Oh well. And the frustrating truth of it is that there's just not a lot of space to shave things down.
It's based on average costs of game developers, the average number of employees, the average price to rent offices, the price to pay celebrity voice actors.
Usually 2 monitors, a desk chair, maybe some cubicle walls, a mouse and a keyboard, and so on. You'll also want to keep the studio kitchen stocked. You're gonna need a janitorial service too.
I would really like to see a source on this, just so I can understand. And luckily, Extra Credits list their source right.
Czyli poczekajcie, czyli prowadzenie studia do gier wiąże się z tymi samymi wymogami, co prowadzenie jakiegokolwiek innego biura? Kurwa. Kto by się tego spodziewał? Jak zatrudniasz ludzi, kurwa, to musisz im dać narzędzia do pracy.
Oh, here it is.
Trust me.
James Portnow, the lead writer on Extra Credits since the beginning and at the time of this episode, is a professional game designer. See, he was a developer on Call of Duty, so he has the inside scoop. Which Call of Duty? You know, the Call of Duty series. Huh. Doesn't say the specific game, and I can't find it anywhere. Even in their own mailbag special, they're particularly vague.
And James, well, as he would put it, he gallivants.
He's not in the credits for Call of Duty 2, or 1, or Finest Hour, or Roads to Victory. Oh, here we go. James Portnow handled sound and a variety of other duties in, Call of Duty Devil's Brigade.
O,
And, you know, he also worked at Divide by Zero Games, which developed... okay, well, he was a narrative consultant on the game most known for its narrative, Farmville. Okay, look, I don't doubt James's assertion that game budgets are outrageous. Clearly they are out of control. Specifics aside, I do agree with his point here. We've entered the era beyond the big budget game. We're now in the era of the giga budget game. But his assertion is also that
There's just not a lot of space to shave things down.
all I have to say is dynamic 4K horseballs. I'm not working blue. This is a real example.
They're dynamic. They react to the weather system, so if you take your horse up in the mountains and it gets chilly, they're gonna shrivel up. They're gonna get smaller. They're gonna shrink.
Question. How many 10 out of 10 reviews would have been dramatically lowered to a 9.8 if they hadn't done this? Did this feature put the game over the top to a 10 for a single reviewer?
This is real. This is real news. We're not making this up. Yeah, no, we're not. They made the horses. Go check out.
This is an almost satirical, but very real and very egregious example of what game budgets are bloated by. But in my opinion, this isn't even the most egregious example in this game. Late in development, it was decided by higher-ups, presumably, that cinematic black bars were going to be added to Red Dead Redemption 2's cutscenes. Which is not as simple as it sounds, although I'm not sure anyone told them that. You know, you can't just plaster the black bars over the scenes. Every single cutscene's camera had to be reframed and redirected to account for this new aspect ratio to avoid framing issues. So that's a lot of work that now has to be done because of black bars, so they crunched the problem. I refer to them as Rockstar's crunch bars. So they inflated the budget to go through and redirect every single completed cutscene to add cinematic black bars that modders removed the same day it came to PC. It was the same day. Was that worth it? Is that not something that could have been shaved down?
Oh well.
Czyli stworzenie elementów, o które nawet nikt nie pytał.
Features that nobody wants happen all the time, but that's just what we can see. There is no telling what kind of money gets wasted behind the scenes on stuff like this. We got a brief glimpse into a particular disaster, Anthem. A ton of money was wasted during the development of Anthem, but my favorite example is how they went back and forth adding and removing and re-adding and re-removing flying for years, and they finally put it back in to impress one executive, Patrick Soderlund, who saw it and literally said, "That was fucking awesome." The answer, in my uneducated opinion, literally, to sustaining gigabudget games is not charging more for them. I think the answer is gigabudget games aren't sustainable. I know.
Oh well.
Maybe games should simply cost less. Don't tell me they can't, I know they can. Even if you have to cut Bobby's multi-million-dollar bonuses, or Dennis Durkin's, or maybe don't pay streamers $50,000 an hour just to play your game for a couple days. Does that sound sustainable? Or maybe stop fixing all of your problems with crunch. I know it happens to every huge project in every industry with a deadline. But do everything you can to minimize it. Like maybe run a pros and cons exercise on those cinematic black bars you wanted. It's just like the movies! And probably most importantly, stop letting clueless bonehead executives manage your game development company into the ground. Games do have a budget problem, clearly.
Myślę, że to jeszcze, kurwa, to wideo jest jeszcze wypuszczone przed świadomością tego, co się stało z Sweet Baby, nie?
Why on earth should we pay for that? And why does every single article I found on the subject insist that we should? Final arguments on budgets. The problem with gigabudget games isn't that they're being sold for too little, it's that they simply cost too much. Don't tell me you can't cut corners when it's blatantly obvious to everyone which superfluous spending could be cut. And finally, manage your projects better. You have to do it. You can't just not do it. If you don't manage your projects well, and the game budget gets out of control, you lose money. Sorry.
To jest sytuacja jak 10 lat developmentu tego, Skull and Bones, nie? W chuj siana w to wjebane i gra jest nagle reklamowana tym, że w chuj siana na nią wyjebali, ale no, to jest ten, czy to jest jakiś ciekawy argument, że ktoś chujowo zarządzał budżetem? No, bardziej bym powiedział, że to jest nawet kontrargument.
And besides, don't they already make up for big budgets with microtransactions?
O, mikrotransakcje.
No, it won't. Do I even have to explain?
Artykuły z 2020, które pisały na ten temat, że gry będą kosztowały więcej, ale już nie będzie mikrotransakcji. No, patrząc 4 lata do przodu, jak to się zakończyło, no to wiemy, że chyba to tak nie
well, this is
pykło.
going to be short. So the argument is, if we raise the price of games, then AAA publishers won't have to fill their games with loot boxes and microtransactions.
Make no mistake, those really are our only two options right now. Because, like I said at the beginning, AAA games just should not cost $60 anymore.
Alright, so let's look at the games that have been known to use a lot of microtransactions while still launching for full price. So that mainly leaves us with yearly shooters like Call of Duty and sports games like NBA 2K. Alright, let's look at the latter first. This year's entry, NBA 2K21, is basically identical to NBA 2K20. And NBA 2K20 was so identical to the previous game, NBA 2K19, that they literally forgot to change the taskbar icon. FIFA 21 is so identical to FIFA 20 that IGN copy and pasted their review for FIFA 20 in protest. A review, by the way, which mostly talked about how FIFA 20 is identical to FIFA 19. Do these games even have budgets? They just copy and paste it! That goes for other sports games too. Madden in particular got ripped to shreds this year. I don't play sports games, because I like video games, so I don't know how different these games are usually from year to year, but the reviews I've seen talk about minor tweaks at best.
From the crowd, which finally has kids in it.
How expensive can these full-price games be that they simply have to offset the costs with some of the worst examples of microtransactions and loot boxes in the entire business? All Alright, well, what about the monetization of slightly more real games like shooters, say Activision's Call of Duty Black Ops 4 from 2018? I mentioned in a previous video that they had basically the worst loot boxes I've ever seen. $2 a pop, 3 items each, no visible probabilities, the potential to roll duplicates, and no way to earn the full-size crates through gameplay, you can only buy them, and they contain pay-to-win experience-enhancing guns! These games must have bigger budgets than sports games, and Call of Duty in particular is known for having some of the biggest budgets ever. And microtransactions have a terrible reputation for being unethical and anti-consumer. So if these games could charge $70, which is happening, why wouldn't they want to take this opportunity to drop the baggage of unethical monetization? Because AAA publishers do not think they're bad. We think that. They do not. I know that they don't because they tell us!
Randomized content mechanic, a surprise mechanic, a loot box. I have no qualms that they are implemented in an unethical way.
They have no reason to want to stop doing this because they genuinely think they're doing nothing wrong.
A czy my przypadkiem jakoś elementu lootboxów, w sensie czy jakoś się rząd tym trochę nie zajął? W tym momencie musi być określona, nie? Chyba, nie wiem, w Call of Duty, ogólnie w tych grach, w Belgii, nie? W Unii Europejskiej trochę to ograniczyli, nie?
To refer back to Extra Credit's metaphor of a forked road,
Make no mistake, those really are our only two options right now.
it's not going to be this road.
O, patrzcie, w tym wideo, które on komentuje, to były tylko dwie drogi, słuchajcie, do podążania. Albo gry będą kosztowały $70, albo gry będą miały mikrotransakcje. Minęły 4 lata. Do czego doszliśmy? Gry kosztują $80-90. Oczywiście, jeżeli chcesz zagrać na premierę, są nadal takie, które kosztują 70, ale to nie grasz na premierę, ale i tak mają MTX w sobie.
Or this road. It's going to be both. Demon Souls, $70, comes with pre-order bonuses and a $20 DLC pack full of in-game items. Call of Duty Cold War, $70, will have battle passes as usual, and NBA 2K21, $70, obviously has loot boxes and microtransactions,
Demon Souls
surprising no
miały,
one.
kurwa, w sobie
This argument has already been proven
gadasz?
wrong. I'm not saying these are bad. Okay, these are bad. I'm just saying this argument is wrong. It might have come from a place of optimism, but it was really just kind of delusional. Closing arguments. The full-price games that use the worst microtransactions are sports games that can't possibly have big budgets. There is no incentive for game companies to drop loot boxes when game prices go up because they truly view them as ethical and they're not looking for a way out. And a lot of games with higher prices already have microtransactions confirmed. But hey, it was a nice thought. Did you know NBA 2K21 has unskippable ads?
Były, kurwa, jaja.
It may seem like a lot of work, but trust me, it's all worth it once the project is complete. In fact, we're gonna let one lucky gamer try our game early. Tell us what you think.
Load times are a little long. I don't really like it. 5 out of 10.
Argumentem było, że gry te droższe są
It
lepsze.
is kind of hilarious how long it took me to find anyone arguing that the reason games should be more expensive is that they're just better now. And this is so obviously not true that the only person I could find who dared to make this argument is the CEO of Take-Two Interactive.
Oh.
Strauss Zelnick said in an interview with GamesIndustry.biz that the price is justified when you're delivering extraordinary quality. And that's what our company prides itself on
Ciekawe, ile
doing.
będzie GTA 6
Okay,
kosztowało.
the man is standing behind his products. Good for him. Let's see if he's right. Let's take a look at Take-Two Interactive's most recent games, and let's organize them by subsidiary. Rockstar. Red Dead Redemption 2. Okay, pretty solid. A lot of people had a problem with that game's core gameplay, but you know, you could make the case with this one, sure. What else has Rockstar done since 2013? Oh. Irrational Games is dead, apparently, and it's now Ghost Story Games? This apparently happened years ago, and I totally did not even notice. Well, has Ghost Story Games made anything? Oh. Social Point. They make mobile games, and that doesn't count. Private Division. okay, Kerbal Space Program is pretty good, and the sequel's coming out. What? The Outer Worlds got a Game of the Year nomination, but it definitely didn't stick around in relevance. Personally, I dropped it
Dzięki,
after
że
2
za
hours.
2 lata.
But people like it.
Dzięki Skut za
I guess.
pierwszy miesiąc suba.
Do they?
I bezimienny. I
Ancestors
blaski.
was completely forgotten about, and I have never heard of this
A
game
Kerbal
before,
2
but
wyszło jak
sure,
gówno.
Private Division is okay, I guess, but definitely not earth-shattering amazing games. And that just leaves the big one, 2K. And 2K is kind of the worst? Okay, so Take-Two Interactive aside, let's look at the other $70 launch titles and see if they're worth it. Call of Duty is Call of Duty, and Cold War at least looks interesting, although I admit I have seen no gameplay, and all I've seen is Ronald Reagan. Demon's Souls is a remake by Bluepoint, and remakes are what they do best. I heard the Shadow of the Colossus remake was pretty great. This game, however, turned me away with its insane DLC, which is already proving to be pretty controversial. I can't even remotely pretend to be interested in Godfall at all. In the last PS5 event, they spent forever talking about this game. Maybe this looks good to someone out there, but I can't get into
Kurwa,
this.
ten Godfall
For
to
some reason,
jakoś
NBA 2K21
stali
is
bokiem.
only
Dzięki,
$70
Matthew.
on the next-gen ports and is $60 right now. And by all accounts, it's the most hated game of the year. Miles Morales is $50, Valhalla is $60, Bugsnax better not be $70, so that just leaves Destruction All-Stars. Okay, while I was making this video, this game got wisely delayed to February and included in PS Plus for free. This is a smart move because, oh my god, this game was so doomed before. Can you imagine paying $70 for this? These are the games leading the $70 revolution. And I'm sorry, Strauss, they're not making the best case for it. That was the shortest entry. Closing thoughts? No. And finally, the last argument. No argument. Games market analyst Matt Piscatella says that the price is just a premium that you pay if you want to play games on day one. And I'm not sure why we let game analysts say anything to anyone, but there you go. Forbes says that any potential losses will be less than the money they make up with the higher price. And if enough publishers pull it off, the rest could follow. And no techie, whoever they are, in the most disjointed and angry article that I found said, so fucking what? Stop hand-wringing, it's worth it. It's just $10, pay it. You pay for Quibi, so you have no right to complain.
I am Carly, your passenger.
If you're not going to make an argument, I'm not going to. This is inevitable, we just have to accept it. No, it's not, and no, we don't. There, that was easy.
Everything that guy just said is bullshit. Thank you.
But, in a way, these are kind of the most right arguments. It's happening. My argument has already lost. There really isn't a solid reason to raise the price, it's just they're going to raise the price because they can.
Ludzie się kurwa godzą na
Or
to.
can they? As of now, there's only a few companies trying this, and the consoles they're trying it on are hard to get, expensive, and kind of hideous? And in my opinion, it's never been easier to wait for the slim models because, good lord, not a lot of people are gonna have these for a while. So in this very limited market, it would take a very strong push all at once to get this new, unpopular concrete to set. And
Kurwa, to się źle zestarzało.
then Destruction All-Stars
Okazało się to
flinched.
prostsze niż kurwa.
The first game to get scared out of the $70 price. And with Godfall also coming to PC for $60, this leaves the only $70 console-exclusive launch title as Demon's Souls, a game from 2009. Cyberpunk 2077, the biggest and most anticipated upcoming game, allegedly upcoming game, is not participating. And neither is this, or this, or this, or this. Also, something that has kind of gotten lost in this video that I should mention is, for the most part, games don't cost $60 either. My favorite games are usually $40 or less. And when you look at this year in particular, 2020 has been the year of the cheap game. Fall Guys, 20, Phasmophobia, 13, Among Us, 5, Helltaker, free, and the list goes on. All these articles talking about how the $70 game is inevitable, I kind of feel like even the $60 game is threatened. I mean, think about it. With so many hugely popular games priced well under $60, filling people's backlogs and monopolizing Twitch, it's actually never been easier for people to wait for full-price games to get cheaper. I'm waiting on Crash 4 to go on sale right now. And it seems like you don't have to wait long. So, are we looking at a future of $70 games? I don't know. I feel like it's gonna be a really hard sell when every other video game is like,
every 12 days we lower the price until it sells. $9.98. Come get it. 44? Yes! 37? Okay, 48. Let's go. 23. Wrap it up. 13. Smoking. 35. Okie dokie. What's the difference? $62. Been sitting here for 5 years. Just come get it. 747, just like the airplane. Take off. 38, let's roll. 39, rock and roll. Better wait 12 days on that one.
Kurwa, no. Ty, to dobre. Fajne wideo.